The Conqueror's Triumph. The galaxy had known wars before, but never like this. The Zerath Dominion fell upon the stars like an unstoppable plague. They were a race of towering reptilian warlords, each soldier bred for conquest, each ship forged for annihilation. Worlds burned in their wake, their skies choked with smoke as the Dominion's fleets hung above them like blades ready to fall. Civilizations that had stood for millennia, some older than Earth's oceans, collapsed in weeks. Resistance was short, brutal, and always crushed. To the Dominion, strength was the only law worth following. By that law, they were kings of the galaxy. One by one, the great powers bent the knee. The towering Voldari, whose soldiers were said to be living tanks, surrendered after only a month of Dominion sieges. The aquatic Zerath, masters of oceanic worlds, offered tribute before a single Dominion ship even reached their waters. Even the towering Kurgul, giants twice the height of a human, known for their unyielding pride, signed the Dominion's surrender decree without a fight, preferring slavery over extinction. The Dominion's warlord, Zerath the Undying, watched these events unfold with grim satisfaction. 8 feet of corded muscle and scales as black as midnight, Zerath was both king and executioner. He stood at the center of the Council of Submission, a grand assembly convened to formalize the surrender of every known species in the galaxy. It was a theater of humiliation. The assembly hall stretched like a cathedral, with high pillars carved from the bones of conquered titans. A throne of living stone rose at its heart, where Zerath sat draped in armor forged from the metals of shattered homeworlds. Around him, alien leaders, kings, chieftains, governors, bowed their heads, one by one placing their marks of surrender onto the Dominion's binding charter. A hush fell when the last delegation was called. "The humans of Terra," the herald announced, voice ringing across the chamber. From the back of the hall, a small group stepped forward. They were almost laughably unimpressive compared to the other species. Where the Voldari loomed like armored beasts and the Zerath glistened with bioluminescent majesty, the humans were small. 5, perhaps 6 feet at most. Their frames seemed fragile, their features soft compared to the brutal lines of the Dominion's warriors. Even their uniforms looked plain, no glistening metals or ornate armor, just dark fabric cut simply for function. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Some of the alien delegates smirked, others chuckled openly. How could such frail beings have resisted the inevitable? Zerath's eyes gleamed like molten gold as he leaned forward on his throne. "The last free world," he rumbled, his voice echoing like a rolling storm. "Tell me, little ones, will you sign? Or shall I scatter your ashes across your blue seas and green fields?" The leader of the human delegation stepped forward. She was not tall, not armored, not even visibly armed. Yet she carried herself with a calmness that silenced the laughter. Her name was Ambassador Mara Hale, and her voice cut through the hall with clarity. "On behalf of the people of Earth," she said, "we decline." The words seemed to freeze in the air. For a moment, there was silence, as if the hall itself had forgotten how to breathe. Then came the uproar, shouts of disbelief, mocking laughter, even gasps of horror from species who knew the consequences of defiance. Zerath rose to his full height, towering above the humans like a mountain over saplings. His claws scraped against the arm of his throne, leaving gouges in the stone. "You decline," he hissed. "Every world before you is knelt. Even giants, even titans. And yet the smallest among them dares to defy me." Mara did not flinch. "We may be small," she said, her eyes locked on his, "but we are not weak. If you come for us, you will find a fight unlike any you have ever faced. We would rather burn our world to cinders than serve your throne." The assembly erupted again, but this time the laughter was strained. There was something in the human's tone, an iron resolve that unsettled even the most jaded conquerors. Zerath studied her in silence. For all his power, for all the fear he commanded, something about this defiance gnawed at him. He had crushed titans and broken empires, but never before had prey stood so calmly in the face of certain doom. Finally, he leaned down, his fanged smile gleaming. "So be it," he said. "The galaxy will watch your world burn. And when the last of you is broken, when your cities are ash and your children are dust, perhaps then you will understand the price of arrogance." Mara's answer was simple. "We understand it already. Can you say the same?" The humans turned and walked from the hall, leaving behind whispers that spread like wildfire. Some delegates muttered that humanity was mad. Others whispered another word, dangerous. The warlords' decree was swift. Earth would be made an example. The Dominion's fleets would descend, and humanity would be erased as a warning to all. But for the first time in centuries, Zerkal felt a flicker of unease. For the smallest species in the galaxy had just declared war on the largest empire it had ever known. And somehow, he suspected this would not end as easily as the others. The War of the Small. The skies above Earth were no longer blue. From horizon to horizon, the heavens boiled with fire as the Zerath Dominion's fleet descended. Vast warships, each the size of a mountain, cast shadows that swallowed entire cities. Their hulls glistened with alien alloys, bristling with weapons capable of vaporizing continents. To the Dominion, Earth was nothing more than an example to be made, its people a lesson in obedience for the rest of the galaxy. The warlord Zerkal had promised that humanity would be erased. His armada arrived to carry out that vow. The Dominion expected a swift victory. They had crushed empires 10 times humanity's size in a matter of weeks. Earth's weapons, primitive by galactic standards, were laughable compared to the firepower arrayed against it. The aliens anticipated a short war, a few bombardments, a token resistance, and then surrender. What they found instead was chaos. Chaos with teeth. The first landings began in the forests of North America. Dominion soldiers, towering reptilian warriors in bone-plated armor, marched from their drop ships with confidence. They expected terrified civilians and crumbling defenses. Instead, the trees whispered with movement. The first shots came not from plasma cannons, but from rifles, human rifles. Dominion warriors fell, their scaled bodies cracking beneath precise bursts of fire. Explosions tore through the landing zone as hidden mines detonated. Within minutes, the disciplined columns of Zerath troops dissolved into confusion. From the shadows, the humans struck, small squads, sometimes only 3 or 4, moved with lethal precision. They fired, vanished, and reappeared elsewhere. When the Dominion tried to give chase, they found themselves funneled into ambushes, where grenades and homemade explosives shredded their ranks. By the time reinforcements arrived, the first wave of Zerath soldiers lay dead in the undergrowth. The humans were already gone. Reports of these skirmishes spread quickly. Across Earth, the story was the same. In the ruins of cities, human fighters tunneled beneath rubble, emerging to strike at Dominion patrols before vanishing underground. In deserts, they used the blistering heat to mask their movements, laying traps in the sand that swallowed entire squads. On icy tundras, they lured Dominion vehicles onto frozen lakes, where hidden charges shattered the ice and sent war machines plunging to their deaths. The Dominion called them rats, but the rats were everywhere. Humanity's size, once mocked, became their greatest weapon. Where Zerath warriors lumbered, humans slipped through cracks, tunnels, and ruins. Their fragility made them cautious, creative, and resourceful. Dominion warriors towered over them, but their bulk made them easy targets in environments humans had mastered. What unsettled the Dominion most wasn't just the tactics. It was the attitude. Captured humans laughed. When interrogated, beaten, or threatened with execution, they made jokes. One soldier, moments before being executed, reportedly grinned at his captors and quipped, "You're going to need a bigger graveyard." The executioner carried out the order, but the words lingered. Even the hardest Dominion soldiers found themselves unsettled. What kind of prey laughed at death? Zerkal himself seethed on his flagship as reports poured in. For every settlement razed, 10 patrols went missing. For every victory claimed, whispers of human defiance grew louder. His officers assured him that the humans were being pushed back, that resistance was meaningless. Yet the casualty reports told another story. Dominion forces were bleeding far more heavily than they ever had against a primitive species. Worse, the galaxy was watching. The Dominion had crushed empires effortlessly. Now, broadcasts leaked from Earth showed images of humans fighting tooth and nail against impossible odds. Small groups of soldiers ambushing titanic warriors, children throwing Molotov cocktails at armored patrols, old men and women wielding hunting rifles in defense of their towns. To the enslaved species of the galaxy, it was unthinkable. For the first time in generations, hope flickered. In the shadows of an abandoned subway beneath New York City, Captain Aria Solace gathered her fighters. Dust and smoke filled the tunnels, but the humans were unbowed. Around her, men and women checked their weapons, rigged explosives, and plotted their next strike. "They think we're weak," Aria told them, her voice carrying over the low hum of generators. "They see us as small, fragile. They don't understand that's our strength. We know how to survive. We know how to adapt." And when giants stumble, she slammed a knife into the map spread across the table, right over the marked Dominion patrol routes. "We're there to finish the job." A chorus of grim laughter rose from the fighters. Above them, the Dominion believed they held Earth in their grasp. But in the tunnels, forests, and alleys, the humans waged a different kind of war, one the Dominion had never been forced to fight before. The turning point came at the Battle of Meridian Station. The Dominion had established a massive supply depot on the ruins of the orbital station, confident that humans could never touch it. But the humans didn't try to storm it head-on. Instead, they infiltrated. Small teams crept aboard through maintenance shafts too narrow for Dominion warriors. They hacked into life support, sabotaged reactors, and planted explosives. When the Dominion's fleet docked to refuel, the trap was sprung. A chain of explosions ripped through the station, tearing warships apart in a fiery cascade. Entire Dominion fleets were left stranded without fuel, easy prey for further sabotage. Zerkul's commanders were stunned. This was not a battlefield they understood. For the first time, the Dominion had suffered a defeat, not from giants, but from the tiny species they had dismissed as laughable. The galaxy whispered. Perhaps strength was not measured in size. Perhaps the smallest race in the stars was the most dangerous of all. And humanity, bloodied but unbroken, was only just beginning its war. The turning tide. The Dominion had expected obedience. Instead, they found contagion. Humanity's defiance spread like wildfire, carried not by ships or weapons, but by stories. Across the galaxy, enslaved peoples huddled in shadows, watching smuggled broadcasts of Earth's resistance. Grainy images showed humans laughing as they fought, striking down warriors twice their size, refusing to kneel even in chains. For species who had surrendered without a fight, the sight was unthinkable, an infection of hope. And hope, the Dominion soon learned, was more dangerous than any weapon. On the barren world of Rasith Prime, a slave mine echoed with whispers. The insectoid Krell, beaten down for generations, gathered around a flickering holoscreen smuggled in by black market traders. It showed a human commander rallying fighters beneath a tattered flag, their voices raised in defiance against the Dominion. One Krell elder rasped, "They are so small, smaller even than we. Yet they fight the giants. They laugh at death." For the first time in years, the miners lifted their heads. Similar scenes unfolded across Dominion space. The aquatic Zerath, chained to their flooded prisons, sang ancient songs once forbidden by their overlords. The Kurgul, giants who had bowed quickly to save themselves, began training in secret, ashamed of their surrender. Even the timid Lorians, long thought incapable of violence, began hiding weapons. The Dominion's iron grip trembled, not because their fleets grew weaker, but because the galaxy had begun to believe again. On Earth, the war raged fiercer than ever. The Dominion tightened its occupation, pouring in more soldiers, heavier weapons, and deadlier machines. Yet the more they pressed, the harder humanity resisted. In the tunnels beneath London, humans pieced together drones from scavenged Dominion tech. In the mountains of South America, guerrilla fighters turned caves into hidden fortresses. Across the Pacific, naval forces harried Dominion ships with jury-rigged submarines and kamikaze drones. What truly changed the war, however, was space. The Dominion ruled the stars with massive fleets, but humans were not content to remain grounded. Using captured tech, engineers and hackers retrofitted Dominion shuttles into stealth raiders. Their ships were smaller, faster, unpredictable. Where Dominion cruisers lumbered like mountains, human raiders darted like sparks in the dark. The first strike came at the asteroid belts of Proxima. A Dominion convoy, fat with supplies, drifted through the rocks. They didn't expect an ambush, but human ships burst from the shadows, weaving through the debris with impossible precision. Torpedoes struck, mines detonated, and by the time the Dominion regrouped, the convoy was gone. Its supplies seized, its escorts left as burning wrecks. The humans didn't stay to fight. They never did. They struck, vanished, and left their enemies howling at shadows. The Dominion called them phantoms. Captain Aria Solace had become the face of the resistance. Her speeches, broadcast across hacked Dominion channels, lit fires in the hearts of rebels everywhere. "They call us small," she said in one transmission, standing aboard a captured cruiser with a human flag behind her. "They call us fragile. They think size is power. But listen closely, Dominion, your chains are breaking. Not because of giants, not because of titans, but because of the smallest race you ever mocked. And when we rise, we do not rise alone." The message reached worlds the Dominion thought pacified. On Chiral 9, slaves tore down their overseers' banners. On the gas mines of Treth, workers sabotaged Dominion harvesters, crippling entire production lines. The galaxy stirred. For the first time in centuries, Zerkol's empire faced true rebellion. The breaking point came at the Battle of Duskfall Nebula. A Dominion fleet had gathered, hunting the human raiders. Confident, they set a trap in the swirling gas clouds, waiting to crush their elusive prey. But humanity had laid their own plans. When the fleet advanced, the nebula itself turned against them. Mines drifted unseen in the clouds, detonating in brilliant bursts that tore through the Dominion's formation. Human raiders darted between flashes of lightning, striking supply ships and vanishing again. Then came the moment that shattered the Dominion's illusion of control. From the nebula emerged not just humans, but allies. Krell insectoids swarmed in refitted cargo ships, stabbing through enemy lines. Kragul giants, ashamed of their earlier surrender, launched boarding parties with brutal efficiency. Even Zerath warships, sleek and alien, appeared from the mist to harry the Dominion flanks. The galaxy had joined the fight. The battle raged for hours, the nebula lit with fire and wreckage. Against overwhelming numbers, the coalition fought with ferocity born of desperation and hope. By the end, Dominion ships drifted as broken hulks, their survivors fleeing into the void. For the first time, the unstoppable conquerors had been stopped. The news spread faster than light. The Dominion had lost, not to giants, not to ancient empires, but to humans and the rebels they inspired. On his throne world, Zerkul raged. The thought of defeat at the hands of the smallest race filled him with fury. His advisors warned him of growing rebellions across the galaxy, of planets slipping from his grasp. Still, he refused to accept it. "I will crush them myself," he vowed, his claws gouging deep scars into the stone of his throne. "The humans will learn that defiance is death." But deep within him, a sliver of doubt remained. The galaxy's greatest warlord, feared by titans and kings alike, had never before been forced to face prey that fought with laughter, cunning, and fire. And as the humans and their allies prepared for the final confrontation, one truth became undeniable. The tide had turned. The fall of giants. The Dominion throne world, Koresh Prime, had never been threatened. Its skies were guarded by the largest fleet in the galaxy, its surface bristling with fortresses and cannons capable of tearing ships apart before they touched the ground. To Zerkul the Undying, Koresh was the symbol of his eternal reign, a world that declared his supremacy to all lesser beings. Now its skies burned. The rebel coalition surged from the void, a patchwork fleet forged from stolen Dominion ships, human raiders, and vessels of once subjugated species. From the massive boarding carriers of the Kurgul to the nimble fighters of the Zerath, they struck in unison. At the heart of it all were the humans, their ships smaller, faster, unpredictable, weaving through enemy fire like sparks dancing in a storm. The battle had begun. Zerkol himself stood on the command deck of his colossal flagship, the Oblivion's Maw. The ship was a city of war, bristling with weapons larger than human skyscrapers. As rebel ships darted across the void, his golden eyes blazed with fury. "Focus fire on the Terran vessels," he roared. "Break their spirit, and the others will scatter." His officers obeyed, unleashing torrents of plasma. Whole wings of rebel ships were incinerated in seconds. Yet the humans did not scatter. Instead, they dove into the Dominion formation, their raiders darting between cruisers, striking engines, weapons, and fuel lines before vanishing again. Every loss the humans suffered was answered with devastation twice over. For the first time, the Maw trembled under enemy fire. On the bridge of the Horizon's flame, Captain Aria Solace stood among her crew, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Hold the line," she ordered. "Remember why we're here. Not just for Earth, for every world that bent under their chains." Her words carried across the fleet, broadcast to allies fighting desperately in the shadow of Koresh Prime. The Kurgul bellowed as they boarded Dominion dreadnoughts. The Krell swarmed enemy ships, disabling them with sheer numbers. The Zerath unleashed coordinated strikes that crippled entire squadrons. And still, the humans fought hardest of all. The coalition began to punch through. For the first time in history, Dominion defenses faltered over their own throne world. But Zerkol was not finished. Enraged, he left the safety of his flagship and descended to the planet's surface. If his empire was to fall, he would crush its enemies with his own hands. The battlefield stretched across the plains before Koresh's fortress citadel, a wasteland of fire and shattered machines. Dominion war beasts roared as they clashed with rebel forces. Soldiers of 100 species bled side by side, united under the banner of resistance. In the heart of the chaos, Aria Solace landed with her strike team. Her boots struck the ash, her rifle in hand, her eyes fixed on the towering figure striding toward her. Zerkol was a monster carved from nightmares. 8 feet of scaled muscle, clad in black armor, wielding a blade taller than Aria herself. His roar silenced the battlefield as he pointed his weapon at her. "Child insect," he bellowed, his voice shaking the ground. "You dare lead armies against me? I am the Undying. I have broken titans. Were you but dust?" Aria stepped forward, raising her blade. "Dust," she said evenly. "Dust that cuts when the wind blows hard enough." The duel began. Zerkol struck first, his blade cleaving the air with thunderous force. Aria dodged, the weapon missing her by inches as it split the earth in two. She darted in, slashing at his armor, leaving shallow marks that only enraged him further. Again and again, his strength drove her back. Every strike could have ended her. Yet every time, she slipped aside, faster, sharper, tireless. Where Zerkol was brute force, Aria was precision. She struck his joints, his weak points, forcing the giant to bleed drop by drop. The Dominion warriors watched in stunned silence. Their warlord, undefeated for centuries, was being slowed by someone barely half his height. Zerkol roared, swinging his blade in a killing arc. Aria dropped, rolling beneath the strike, and drove her knife deep into the gap under his arm. The warlord staggered, bellowing in fury, before wrenching her aside with terrifying strength. "You are nothing," he spat, blood dripping from his wound. Aria rose to her feet, battered but unbroken. "We're humans," she said. "We've been underestimated since the dawn of time, and every empire that tried to break us learned the same lesson." She triggered the detonator in her hand. Beneath the battlefield, explosives planted by her strike team erupted. The ground trembled, collapsing into fire. Dominion war machines toppled, fortifications crumbled, and Zerkal himself was swallowed by the explosion. The warlord roared one last time before the fire consumed him. Silence followed. Then, slowly, across the battlefield, the Dominion forces faltered. Their leader was gone. Their armies, once unshakable, began to break. One by one, ships fell silent. Fortresses were abandoned, and the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known collapsed in the dust. When the smoke cleared, the coalition stood victorious. The enslaved were free. The galaxy was no longer bound by fear. At the center of it all stood humanity, the smallest, most fragile race, now hailed as giants in spirit. Years later, a monument rose on Koresh Prime. Not a towering statue of strength, but a simple image cast in stone. A group of humans, small compared to the alien figures around them, standing tall with weapons lowered. At their center, the likeness of Aria Solace, her gaze unyielding, her stance defiant. The plaque beneath bore only a single line. Every species surrendered, except the humans.